If you're watching this video, chances are you have what I like to call a hobby car. It's not necessarily your daily driver. It's a car that you might not even need in the first place, but it's a car that you have, love, and appreciate very much. And if you don't have what's called agreed value insurance coverage on it, you definitely need to watch this video.
Who's there? Connecting rod.
That's good.
So agreed value insurance, what is it? What does it cost? What are the pros and cons of it? We'll get to that in a minute. So what sparks this conversation are the number of accidents that we've been seeing in the Mark I community. There's 3 cars in particular that popped up in the Facebook group recently that were involved in accidents, and it seems that none of these cars had agreed value insurance. They just had, standard insurance policies like you would have on a regular car through Geico, Liberty Mutual. Fortunately, none of these people were seriously injured. They were all beaten and bruised up a bit. I want to take this moment to remind you guys, wear your seatbelts, especially if you're driving old classic cars in tin cans like this. They had full coverage, it seems, but that does not mean that they're going to get the money that they have into the car back out of it. We've got Josh here with the yellow rabbit. He's getting $5,500 and getting to keep the car. He feels he should have gotten $10,000, and I think somewhere between that $5,500 and $10,000 is what it would take nowadays to get yourself back into a clean, solid driver condition rabbit. Whether you have to pay transportation fees to get it from a couple states away, or you got to fly out and buy it and drive it back home, or buy one more local that's in less favorable condition that you have to put a couple $1,000s into to get it up to par. Now, I don't know what Trey with the Jetta and Emmanuel with the Red Rabbit are getting paid from their insurance companies, and I don't know what Trey had into the Jetta, but I do know that Emmanuel had a 180 swap in the car, and over time he did have something put into it, more than what insurance is probably going to give him. You can see here that Emmanuel chimed in on Josh's post saying that he's got 2 options. He could get a check for all the money he's put into it, and they take it, or he gets no money back and he keeps the car. When you're dealing with these common insurance companies and these standard insurance policies, when you make a claim, you usually have some wiggle room and you could go back and forth, produce receipts, and get a bit more money, more favorable outcome for you. But it's not like you're going to get the $10,000 or $15,000 additional that some of us have into these cars. The only way to guarantee that you are made whole with the actual money you have into your car, or what you feel it would cost you to replace that car, is through an agreed value insurance policy. I asked for all my friends to chime in with their experiences and what insurance policies they have on their classic cars. We're going to go over a few of these responses, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on them. We've got Dan. He's got American Collectors Insurance, $11,000 policy on his Corrado. Unfortunately, he just totaled it, but he says they were great about allowing me to utilize my own shop of choice and even having the shop of choice write the estimate. Unfortunately, in my case, the shop wrote the estimate way high, and that created the total loss situation I'm in now. $280 a year, and he has 2 cars and $25,000 worth of coverage. All these numbers are subjective to your location, your driving record, your age. There's lots of factors that play into what you would pay for an insurance policy. So don't use any of these numbers as like a written in stone guide. Back when I had my sport truck insured through Geico, I was paying something like $200 or $300 a month. And that was just for basic liability insurance. Eventually, I paid a couple bucks and got comprehensive, or what people consider full coverage. But at the end of the day, if I had totaled that truck, I would have only gotten $4,000 or $5,000, when in reality, I had over 8 into it. Fast forward a few years, and I found out about Hagerty and was able to get a policy through them, and I was paying that much a year for full coverage, agreed value at $10,000. I feel like that alone is worth switching to one of these policies. And just a quick disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by any of these companies we're talking about. Video sponsored by you guys, the viewers. Shout out to all you guys for continuing to watch. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Check out the other videos, see what else we got going on. Got Jonah up next. My family all has Hagerty on our collector cars and race cars. Thankfully, we haven't had to test it out yet. Is this insurance for the track cars during race use? Because I know that there are single day and multi-day policies that you can purchase for $100, $200 that will cover you on track. Most of these insurance companies with regular insurance policies or agreed value policies, they're not going to pay you if you total your car at the track or in a race event. What happens if you're laying the car up for a couple months and you know you're not going to be driving it? Guess what? Hagerty, and I'm sure some other companies, will give you a storage policy where you say that I'm taking it off the road or I'm not driving it. They will give you a cheaper rate, but still the same benefits of making sure your asset is completely covered and insured. Obviously that you cannot go and drive the car, because if you get in an accident with a storage policy on it and they find out, you're not going to get any kind of payout. So this is good for stuff like flood, storm damage, theft, fire. Just understand that there's so many different types of insurance coverages out there that you really should take a moment and check your policy to make sure it's going to make you whole at the end of the day. Veronica here with her Mark II GTI that back in 2015 was totaled out with Geico. They gave her $3,400. Compared to what Mark II prices are doing lately, that's a drop in the buckets. She had to submit a list of parts and prices to show that it had more value, so they paid out the most. Yeah, so even still, it sounds like she had to basically put up a fight for even that little amount. Also, to anybody who has their own experiences they'd like to share below in the comments, I'd really appreciate and strongly encourage you to do so. Next up, we've got Tobias with the trousers. Thankfully, I've never had to make a claim on a classic policy. I will say Hagerty has really stepped it up with the agreed upon values. No questions asked, they agreed to $35,000 for each vehicle. A couple years ago, I had the 78 Tan Rabbit, and when I called up to get that insured, they didn't quite see the $3,500 value that is their minimum, or was their minimum at the time. A couple minutes on the phone with the Hagerty employee, and I explained to them the differences of the earlier rabbits, how they're harder to find and typically demand a higher value. I don't really think this is as much of an issue nowadays, and you shouldn't really run into an issue as long as it's not a total clapped out turd that you're trying to insure with them. It seems that over the last few years, a lot of people have gone to these companies and insured their early water-cooled Volkswagens with them. We'll use this moment to talk about what it's like when you want to change the value on your policy. For example, if you put a new engine in it, or you get a new set of fancy wheels on it, or you do paint work to it. In my experience, it's been very hassle-free, and in most cases, they don't even ask for proof. In one scenario, they asked for pictures of the motor that I'd put in when I put a different motor in the sport truck. I bumped the value up by $2,000 or $3,000 because that's what I had into that engine. So God forbid the car catches on fire or gets stolen or wrecked. You know, I'm not out the few $1,000s that I just put into the car. Another huge perk and benefit of these agreed value policies is exactly that. As you modify the car or the markets go through the roof, you can adjust accordingly. Take this as a reminder for those of you who already have policies to go and check your value and see if it's up to par with today's standards or the current condition of the car. On that note, we have Paul. American collectors for 10 years now on a variety of cars, never had a claim, but they're currently giving me a hard time about increasing the value on my Rabbit from $8,000 to $12,000 now that it's been repainted and the interior has been redone. Pictures weren't enough for them. They wanted to see receipts for everything done to justify the value increase. As I mentioned earlier, you might have to jump through a couple extra hoops and go through a couple extra steps. But at the end of the day, these companies do want more money from you. So, got Anthony here with some great input from a different point of view that we don't get to see. He has policies with both Geico and Hagerty. He's not had to file with Hagerty as of yet, but he does run a body shop and has experience on that end. Hagerty is easier to work with most. Each adjuster and company can be different. The main thing to watch for now is how your policy is written. Things to think about are OEM versus aftermarket parts, rental, glass. He feels that how the policy is written is far more important than most other components related to insurance, and that's a great point. Go and review your policy regardless of what you currently have. Michael says he has Hagerty on his 911, $1,600 a year. Went to Grundy and has a higher value and is $500 a year. In a few minutes, once we finish going through the rest of these comments, I'll give you guys a bit more detail on my firsthand experiences because I've had Hagerty for something like 7 or 8 years now. Overall, great experience with them. I have some complaints and some things that you should keep in mind, but we'll get to that in a minute. Adam said he never had to make a claim, but it was a $10,000 policy. I believe I paid $120 a year. Again, that's an awesome value. Eric uses Grundy. He's only covered for about $5,000 or $7,000 because my wheels are the only nice part on my car. If you put nice baller wheels on your car and you got a few $1,000s into them, these agreed value policies are for exactly that. I know there are ways through standard insurance policies to get nice stuff on your car or things you add to your car covered, but it's a much more uphill battle. So that about wraps up my friends and their experiences. Shout out to all of you who commented and contributed to help make this video. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all of you. This would be like a 4-hour long video if we went through all the responses. So thanks again, everybody. Now for my firsthand experiences with Hagerty. I got my first policy with them about 8 years ago. and they've been great since. I have not had to make any claims. I do have plenty of experience with the roadside service, unfortunately. They haven't really been the best experiences, but we'll get into that in a bit. Last year when I renewed my policy, I had the Lotus, the van, and the Silver Rabbit. Lotus had a $20,000 value on it. The Silver Rabbit has a $6,000 value, I believe, and the van has about an $8,000 or $7,000 value on it, which I'm going to need to bump up with all the work and money we put into brown sugar lately. And yes, we do have a couple update videos coming out right after this video. We're actually going to get ready to test drive the van tomorrow. I'm a little bit behind on getting you guys the updates on that, but there's plenty of progress and I'm excited to share that with you. So to sum it all up, I had close to $40,000 worth of coverage on those 3 vehicles, and it cost me $661 for the year. $175 of that was for the roadside service. Hasn't been great, and I don't necessarily blame Hagerty directly, because every time I've had to call up and request service, it's usually a third-party company that answers the call. There have been several times in the past where I waited 3 or 4 hours for a tow.
Yeah.
She's done.
Oh, sick.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a camera.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What is that one over there? 1.8. Oh, it's the 3TC. Yeah. 3TC. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you know those. Yeah, my buddy had one.
Well, you guys were very chill. I guess I should probably get on my way now.
All right,
Yeah.
It's nice meeting you guys.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you, man.
Yeah. Nice meeting you, dude. Have a good one. Hope you guys get out of here soon.
Resorted to trying to hitch a ride home.
Yeah,
We're good. We got a 6-pack.
You got beer.
Trying to hitch a ride home.
Something tells me the person that will stop
Is
not the person we want to stop.
no, no. So we'll see if we get somebody to stop, just so we can go.
Bob.
Yeah, just so we can go grab one of the other cars and come back here and have heat. There we go. Are you going right over the mountain?
Yeah, man. You guys need a ride?
I live right across the mountain. I just gotta grab another car,
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Cool, man. If you guys jack them, kill you though.
No.
All right.
We're back. Had so much time to spare, waiting for a tow. We hitchhiked home and went and got Russ's truck. Oh, of course, they have 1.2 stars on Google. I don't necessarily blame Hagerty directly. I know the first time I encountered that bad of a wait, I called them up and made a lot of noise about it. And they sent me a $100 check, which at the time was half of my policy cost. So, you know, that was really awesome of them. And that sign of good faith is what kept me. I see myself continuing to pay for Hagerty's roadside service for years to come, because it is a better deal than what Geico offers me. Yes, I have a Geico policy as well, so we'll get into that in a minute. I know that's like the 5th time you've heard me say that, but again, there's a lot to talk about here and lots of things that you need to consider. Now, there are some drawbacks, or at least things that you need to be aware of when setting up one of these policies. Hagerty, for as long as I've been using them, requires me to have a daily driver under another policy. Currently, that's my Mark IV GTI. The 337 is insured through Geico. That's like $60 a month for me to insure that car. Before that was the Passat wagon. Before that was the Suburban. Before that was the Golf R. You know, it's basically been years of me always having a daily driver. Even though there's been a couple points in time where I've felt comfortable only having these cars that are on my Hagerty policy, it is kind of nice to be forced to have a daily driver, something that's usually a bit more reliable and newer than these older cars. To sum this all up, the main message that this video should be getting out there is, just because you have full coverage through a conventional insurance company does not mean you're actually going to be fully reimbursed for your classic car. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked this video or you found some useful information, make sure you leave a comment below. It really helps the channel grow.
Do you know what changed you